Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Rob Donaldson, and welcome back to another edition of Rob's Best Bets. And in this episode, we are once again taking a look at college basketball, baby. And we had a really fantastic day on Thursday. Fantastic day. And right now, we're sitting at 4-0. We're up 9.88 units across college football and college basketball. Specifically for college basketball, we're 3-0, and I'm too tired to do the math. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but Portland is our last leg. It's a 1-unit bet, and I didn't place a parlay. I don't know why I said leg, but it would be a college basketball sweep if the Portland Pilots, who are up 16 at half right now, can finish off and cover our 15.5 over the full game. But hey, maybe it'll show up in the edit right now as you're seeing the screen. Regardless, I am so happy to be jumping in to these Friday bets. It's a really great slate for a lot of mid-major teams as well as some high-major teams as well. And I think we're staring at a really, really bettable board. And before we jump into those picks, I do want to take a second to shout out today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. And if you haven't already signed up using promo code ROBDFB, I highly recommend you guys do so. But with all that being said, y'all, let's go ahead and jump into these picks here on Friday in the college basketball world. All right, next up, we are taking a look at a matchup here between Georgetown and Maryland. And when you're taking a look at this matchup and just the dynamic that it holds over the region, I truly believe that this should be an every year type of matchup. And right now, it is not that. But I do think that if this game produces a really fun result, whether it is for Georgetown or Maryland, maybe, just maybe, we see this game played with a little bit more frequency. And if you're Ed Cooley and you left Providence the way that he did a couple years back, this is kind of the year where you need to see it start to materialize, because we haven't seen it yet with Ed Cooley at Georgetown. And although the talent kind of feels like, the quote-unquote 1 year away, it can't be 1 year away. And I do think with the backup against the wall scenario that we have at play here, and Georgetown just kind of feeling like, hey, we need this spot to play up for the region, I think they're going to stick within the number of 8 points here, and I say we go ahead and take them for 3 units for our first bet here on Friday. For pick number 2, we are taking a look at a matchup here between Winthrop and George Mason. And last year, George Mason had a hell of a season, and if it wasn't for VCU, we might be talking about George Mason as one of those teams in the first round of the NCAA tournament that pull off a massive upset. And I do think that when you're looking at the landscape of the A-10 this season, and VCU kind of going through a roster turnover, a coaching turnover, and really just a path that kind of seems to run almost through Dayton at this point, man, this could be a really fun season again for George Mason. And on the other side, Winthrop in game 1, we bet against them. They won the game late, and you got to give them credit, but they did look really, really sluggish against a Queens team that really didn't have it in the early goings offensively. And I do think that George Mason is going to have it from start to finish in this game. And so for that reason, I say we go ahead and lay the 11.5 points here for 2 units for our second bet here on Friday. For pick number 3, we are taking a look at a really fun mid-major matchup here between Cornell and Kent State. And when you're looking at Kent State and Rob Senderoff, this is a program that year over year is going to win a lot of games. That is just a given when you're talking about Kent State. And really, the only question is, are they going to win the MAC year in and year out? And a lot of times recently, I feel like they have squandered some really good opportunities. But in this type of spot, when they're coming off a really tight loss against Troy last time out in that Sunbelt MAC Classic, I really do think that Kent State is going to put their best foot forward against a Cornell team that honestly, I think has a lot of questions. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and lay the 4.5 points here for 3 units for our third bet here on Friday. For pick number 4, we are heading out to South Bend, Indiana, where we have a matchup here between the Detroit Mercy Titans and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And when you're looking at this matchup here, I think a lot of things need to be proven in the early goings by Notre Dame, by Micah Shrewsbury, because it hasn't really gone as kind of expected in the early stages of this tenure. And although I think Micah Shrewsbury is a fantastic coach, man, we've got to see it materialize. And although the ACC is wide open, and Notre Dame could certainly be one of those teams that insert themselves into the mix, we kind of need to see it in the non-con play to really buy into what this team can become later on down the road. And this is a perfect spot where you can probably open it up against a much inferior opponent. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and lay the 20.5 points here with the Irish for 2 units for our fourth bet here on Friday. For pick number 5, we are heading out to another mid-major on mid-major contest here, and this game is going to be between Hofstra and Iona. And obviously, when you're talking about Iona, the big news coming into the season is Tobin Anderson is no longer in the building, and on the other side, Speedy Claxton and Hofstra seemingly have a very good roster coming into the season. And although Hofstra lost in their first game out, man, I thought they looked really, really impressive. And I do feel like in these types of spots, when they're playing a like opponent, and in my opinion, an inferior opponent, I do think that whether it's on the road or at home, they're going to be able to handle business in the early goings this season. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and lay the 1.5 points here for 3 units for our fifth bet here on Friday. For pick number 6, we are heading out to a matchup between Stonehill and DePaul. And if you know me and you know how I kind of followed this DePaul team last season in terms of the betting market, you know that in year 2 of Chris Holtman, I'm a serious believer. And Stonehill, on the other side, they are one of the programs that have come up to Division I hoops over the past couple years where it kind of feels like they haven't transitioned as well as some of the other ones. And I do think that DePaul right now is trending in a direction where they're no longer just kind of that doormat of the Big East. They are a legitimate good team, and I do think that this is the season where we see DePaul kind of blow past a ton of expectations. And I get it. They're laying 21.5 points here, and for DePaul teams of the past, they might even freaking lose this game. But in this type of spot with this DePaul team, I think they go out here and absolutely lay the hammer down. So let's go ahead and lay the 21.5 points here for 2 units for our 6th bet here on Friday. For pick number 7, we are taking a look at another really, really fun mid-major matchup here between Chattanooga and St. Mary's. And Chattanooga is one of those teams that year in and year out, under Dan Earl, seemingly are just always very, very good. And they always seem to identify really talented pieces as well. The issue, and I'm sure Chattanooga fans feel very similar to this, despite all the winning, they have had some real struggles in terms of getting over that hump in their conference tournament or having that real chance to go out and win the SoCon. And I do feel like that Chattanooga over the years has kind of had some teams where if they just got into the dance, if they clinched it somehow by winning in their conference tournament, they had some real upset potential. But, you know, I digress on that point because this Chattanooga team is still very, very good. And yes, they're turning over some really talented pieces in a number of different spots. but I do feel like going up against St. Mary's on the road is actually buying us a really good number on a really good team. And I get it, St. Mary's should be good this season. I just don't think that they're 13.5 points better than a team like Chattanooga is coming up from the SoCon. So let's go ahead and take the 13.5 points here for 3 units for our second to last bet here on Friday. All right, for our final bet here on Friday, we are taking a look at a matchup between Pepperdine and UCLA. And I get it, there's an in-state component when you're talking about that lower mid-major going up against the big dog in the region. But what I will say is UCLA in their first game out against Eastern Washington kind of dropped the ball. They flat out struggled. And this is a very talented team coached by a head coach that I'm fairly certain is psychotic. And kind of like what we did with Auburn on Thursday, laying that 23.5 points with it being one of our biggest sizable bets after they had struggled the previous time out against Bethune-Cookman. We have a very similar spot here with UCLA. And I get it, there is that in-state component at play, but I don't think it really applies here when you're talking about a UCLA team that I think head to toe is just stacked up with talent. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and bet this confidently, laying the 27.5 points for 4 units for our final bet here on Friday. All that being said, I really want to thank you guys for checking out today's video. And if you do want to show some love, make sure you drop a like on this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you guys comment down below. But with all that being said, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.